everybody, welcome back to the Mount Tammany Ridge channel. We got John here, hanging out up here in the garage, and I got the saw up in the bench vise, and I'm gonna make a little bit of a video here on chainsaw chains and sharpening, right? So, I mean, I guess you could classify it as a tutorial, but again, there's a lot of people out there that know a whole heck of a lot more than I do. However, it does seem to be a popular subject right now, so I figured I would, maybe post a little bit about my take on it. Okay. There's been a little bit of talk from several other channels about the all-in-one file that tells you the angles, and it files down your rakers each and every time, and it kind of does everything for you as you're filing. And on the face of it, it seems like a really neat thing, right? However, I do feel like it's slightly gimmicky, okay, and a little bit misleading, okay? So, really, what I'm getting at with that is when you start using a chainsaw, okay, and you begin to, realize why a lot of people just go out and, buy firewood, right? And largely it's because, in their mind, you fire up the chainsaw, you cut up the wood, you throw it through the splitter, you stack it, woohoo, you're done. And it's kind of not true. There's a whole lot going on. There's more expense than a lot of people think. It's really a lifestyle choice, right? It's not wanting your grid to be completely down when everybody else's is, right? So you want to be able to heat your home with a wood stove. That's my preferred method, is wood stove. I don't want a fancy wood stove. I want a wood stove that I can cook on the top. I can heat up water for cooking purposes, or doing bird baths, whatever, to keep your hygiene where it needs to be. That's why I choose to use a wood stove, and that's why I choose also to process my own firewood. I don't want the price out there, the going rate of firewood, to be what determines whether I can eat, stay warm, or bathe, right? So that's the reason why I go through what I go through. Is there going to come a point in my life where this lifestyle, as far as being able to provide my own heat, is going to be unsustainable? Yeah, it's entirely true, or entirely possible, is what I'm trying to say. Largely because of the expense, right? So as you get older, you begin to realize that processing your own wood the inexpensive way is very labor intensive. You don't have any nice equipment with log lifts, you don't have processors, you don't have all those things, so that all you have to do is hop in a front end loader, a skid steer, whatever, drop a bunch of logs on a live deck, and then send it through the processor and pitch it into an outdoor wood furnace. There's a lot more of us that don't live that way. We would like to. It would be preferable, but just where we are in life does not allow us to live that way. So now that I'm done chasing that squirrel, as far as sharpening chains is concerned, that all kind of falls into that whole thing too, where you find things in logs. The log bark picks up gravel, all kinds of silicon off the ground, And those silicons are abrasives and they wear down in your chain, and some more than others. When you go and start, trying to sharpen your own chains, whether you're using a grinder like I've got this one over here, which I still have a lot to learn about. Those videos will be coming in the future. How soon, I don't know. But the one thing I have learned about is hand filing. Okay? And where hand filing, you almost can't get away from it, right? So this Husqvarna 460, I've got an old chain on here. I have had this chain, I'm not kidding, for probably more than 3 years. It might be pushing up on 4 years now. And now, I mean, the reason why I've had this chain that long is because I've had 3 or 4 other chains that long as well, because I rotate my chains, right? I switch from one chain to the other to the other. And then I put them through a sharpening sequence, okay? That way I always have at least 2 sharp chains with me available before I gotta start breaking out the file. Now, I'm gonna bring you guys in close here, and I want you guys to see how much of the chisels I have used on this, and maybe talk a little bit more about why you really kind of can't get away from a hand file. Oh yeah, that's definitely a difference. See if I can get you straight up and over. See that there? That's we're down there. That's the hash mark right there. See that little line? Okay. That one's even further down yet. That one's got a little bit more meat in it, but nonetheless, I mean, they are all really close. Look at this one out here. Yep, that's way down there. All right, so again, I apologize. I was really hoping to get that GoPro to zoom a little bit better and get a good focus on the hash mark on that chisel, and to kind of give you a reference of how much of the chisel I've used. I'm pretty much less than 1/8 of an inch away from, like, considerably less than 1/8, maybe a 1/16 of an inch on some of them. Now, so as somebody sharpening, or I should say cutting their own firewood, it won't take very long of bucking up your own wood and things like that to come across damaged chisels, right? A lot of times that leading edge, okay, where you're supposed to get that cat claw sharp, right, is going to be marred. It's going to be mashed, and you're going to have to do some pretty serious filing to get that to go away. If you do not get that mash mark, okay, and that it's like instead of the chisel needs to come out like straight. I mean, it's got to come out with a nice crisp straight edge. It can't be slightly coved or cupped downward, okay? All that's going to do is glance off the wood at that point. You might as well just cut the chisels off and try to cut it in half with your rakers, okay? So when you have that kind of damage, which is more often than not, it's more often than not, you find yourself really having to eat away at that chisel to get yourself to a sharp chain, okay? And it doesn't happen on all the teeth at the same time. So that means that you need to file that tooth down in a lot of cases more than the others. Now, it is recommended that you try to get your chisels, all the chisels on your chain, filed to roughly the same length, okay? If you did that, you would have one tooth that was damaged so bad, and you would basically just file all your teeth down, and you won't get more than 2 uses out of your chain from the initial one, and then obviously that sharpening. You literally get one sharpening out of it. So you do need to kind of play the tit for tat game, you know, trying to sneak up on and salvage the chisels that you do have left that are in good shape. So now the other thing is rakers. Okay, now the reason why I don't like the all-in-one or two-in-one or whatever you call those things, I got one here that's like the Husqvarna, the Husky version, right? So it's got a rectangular flat file in there, and then it's got these, you know, metal rails here, I guess, as guides, right? To slide on top of the chisel to keep your, how can I say, your plunge accurate, right? Consistent. And then you've got your, I've got my 7/16 file in there, okay? Now, if you're gonna go through all that time, okay, to file the chain with one of these, okay, you might as well skip out on using one of these altogether and just use a regular file that is appropriate for your chain, and then follow up with the rakers. Now, reason why I say follow up with the rakers, okay? Now, the way I do it, okay, is I typically don't touch the rakers until I start to notice my saw starting to sort of what they call four-stroke a little bit, okay? If your saw seems to be tacking out, okay, hitting its rev limiter, okay, that means you're not getting enough bite into the wood. And that usually means one of two things. Your chain needs sharpening, okay? The chisel of your chain needs sharpening, or your rakers are standing proud of or above the cutting chisel. And that is preventing the material from ever getting into the path of the chisel to get removed, all right? Now, yes, you do want to file down your rakers. Problem with the two-in-one setup is every single time you file your chain or the chisels on your chain, you're touching the rakers. Now, you might think that, well, that makes sense, right? You know, you wear down the chisel and you come down with the raker. And that is true. But my experience, the little bit that I have, and my experience, okay, I don't touch the rakers for every 2 to 3 sharpenings, okay? So I'll sharpen a chain, say 2 or 3 times, and typically at that point I will notice that, you know, the RPMs are racing higher and it's starting to four-stroke a little bit, and I'm not getting the bite that I need the saw to get. That is how I typically do it. Now, and that was really kind of part of the learning curve. I really shouldn't say that's how I determine, okay? But it is a way to determine. Now that I've learned that that's why the saw seems to be over-revving, okay? Now I know to prevent it from over-revving, I need to touch up my rakers, but not every time, right? Every 2 to 3 sharpenings is what I find works for me, all right? So I might touch the ground with my saw less often than you do. It might be the other way around. You might never touch the ground with your saw, okay, and dull your chain, you know? It really all depends on that. Gravel in your bark, debris inside the tree that grew into it, you know, like hardware, things like that. The more of those occasions you have, the more sharpenings you're gonna have. So just kind of a food for thought thing. When you're sharpening your chain, try to not touch your rakers every time. I'll show you what I use. So I use one of these, okay? I see some of the coolest guys on YouTube that I watch, okay, and I do learn a lot from them. One of which is brain fart, Buckin' Billy Ray. Okay, now I can't remember if I saw him use this on his channel. I may have, I can't remember. Chance that I could be mistaken. But a lot of the guys that I watch, and I'm sure you have maybe even seen their channels too, okay, they use things like this. And there's a dimple, okay, you see these little recessed pockets, okay? One sits on a raker, one sits on one chisel, and one sits on another chisel. And then the raker protrudes through the middle here, okay? Raker sticks up just like that, okay? And then whatever bit of the raker is standing proud out the center, you take this file and you just file it, okay? And until it's flush with this plate. It seems very rudimentary, it seems silly, it might seem cheesy, okay? But it works. I'm telling you, it works. These are hard to, to not lose. So once you start using one and you see the value of it, you're gonna probably try to do everything you can to make sure you don't lose it. I'm almost thinking that's probably why they've got this little hole here, so you could put it on some sort of like a ring or something to keep it from getting lost in the weeds. So that's how I have been sharpening my saws. Now, if any of you guys have questions, feel free to hit me up in the comments. There's not a ton more that I know. A lot of what I do is by trial and error, just like the rest of you guys, except our timing is just different, right? If you're there was many years I was asking questions, I was going on YouTube, I was looking for answers, just like you are, right? That's why I'm posting this video, and this might help expedite your understanding of why files are never going to be a thing of the past. They're never going to be. Even when you have a sharpening tool or piece of equipment like this, okay? I'm sure that once I get through the learning curve and making it everything, the one thing I will say is, though I'm not 100% happy with my results right now, my results, not the machine's results, my results. Operator error is all I'm experiencing right now. I'm just learning. The one thing I will say that I have learned, which is a tremendous help, is when you're cutting, when you're sharpening with a tool like this, the accuracy, okay, of the grind is tremendous, okay? And what I mean by that is when you're hand filing, if you don't file the left tooth, okay, the same as the right tooth or as very close, if your angles are off, you're gonna start getting cuts that angle off to the side. Some of them are gonna curve aggressively, things like that. With this thing, as soon as you learn how to use this clamping system and use the angles on this clamping system, it's incredible, because every single one's going to be identical. And it does. It helps you cut a very nice straight line. So if you're somebody who's trying to cut 16-inch length pieces, you're going to get it with this. It's not going to be one of those things where you're going off to the side, okay? However, my chains don't seem to be quite as hungry as they used to. So I think a lot of that has to do with me just having to learn what angle is going to work the best for what chain. That is one of those things that is just, it's a variable that's going to be. Each chain is going to be somewhat a little different, okay? Now obviously I should specify brand, okay? I can feel it now. Like this one's cat claw sharp, and this one's not. And it's kind of there, and that's from the skin of my finger. That's not the fingernail. If you really want to know if it's cat claw sharp, use your fingernail. Touch your fingernail to that cutting edge, And if it starts grabbing it and taking material off your fingernail, you're gonna know that sucker's sharp, I can promise you. So it's not gonna be too much longer before I have to start, going out and buying more chains to start the process over again. Like I said, these 3 chains I've had for easily, pushing up on 4 years of cutting. So, and all that is to do with just when you hand file, don't, just try not to chisel, to file away the whole chisel if you can avoid it. But you do you have to get rid of the damage on the chain. Keep your tip out of the dirt, guys. Just keep the saw out of the dirt. Try to make sure your bark is clean. If the bark can come off easily, maybe even do that. I know one thing I do with my excavator is I'll use the thumb and the teeth, to kind of break the bark loose and knock it off even before I bring it back to the farm here when I do go out and get my own stuff. So I know for those of you that don't have equipment like that, I get it, I understand. But if you got a little crowbar or something you want to keep down there by your splitter, or down in your wood yard, you can stuff that spade of the crowbar back there and just kind of knock some stuff off. Even if you don't get all of it off, you're limiting the exposure of abrasives to your saw altogether, right? So for you guys need to decide whether you want to spend the extra time peeling the bark off the log or the extra time sharpening the saw. Because honestly, I don't peel the bark off the log because it's 6 of one, half dozen of another. So you guys have yourselves a good evening. If you could, hit that like button, subscribe, share with your friends who might be interested, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Hope this was helpful to you.